Hey guys, Davey here with the DaveyDacusGuitars YouTube channel. Today we're going to walk through setup on this is a 1962 or 63, I think we figured out, Gibson LG1. This guitar came in with a broken bridge. We made this bridge from scratch. If you didn't see that video, check it out. And this is going to be going through the setup process on this guitar. Doing this guitar for Larry Daniels Music. This is a customer of Larry Daniels Music, brought in the guitar for repair. I'll see if I can link down below also to the Larry Daniels Music Facebook page, so you guys know where to bring the guitars if you need some repairs done. The first thing you want to do when you're going to set up the guitar, you need to actually play it. In particular, in this case, this guitar came in without strings on it, so we need to know where it's at before we can do anything with it. Just play your open strings, some chords, see if you get any issues. Biggest thing I'm noticing, probably going to be a common problem, is we need to lower the action. It is pretty stiff right here. I'll give you a better shot of that shortly. This I'm noticing too right off the bat. I don't know if you can tell on the audio here, it's not quite as clear as it should be. That's got some clarity. That does. Probably to do with something going on right up here at the nut. Something else we can see just on a visual inspection of the guitar, you can see right here, something's happened with this nut slot. It's actually kind of got two slots cut in it. We're going to have to make this right. Other than that, I don't see anything. We've already done a lot of work to this guitar as well, so it's going to be a pretty basic setup here. Other than you can see, we can drive a plane under that, so we're going to have to fix that as well. Okay, here's a look at the action at the 17th fret. This is 15 right here, 17 right there. You can see we are well over 140 thousandths here. Fraction just about 10/64, 5/32. I like to target between about 100 and 130 thousandths for an acoustic, depending on the player. We're probably going to set this one at about 110, and let's see what happens. Maybe not quite that low if it gets comfortable before we get there. Here's one of the first things you want to look at to adjust is your truss rod. It's going to affect things like the string height right here at the nut, which we're going to be adjusting on this guitar as well. And it's going to affect your action on down the neck as well. I can't really get this phone to focus right here. That's okay, because it actually takes a long time to develop an eye good enough to see exactly what's going on here. So I'm going to show you a way that you can get a feel for your truss rod without being able to spot it with an expert eye. Here's how you gauge the truss rod on a guitar without an expert eye. You want to press your first finger on the first fret up here, and then you want to put with your other hand down here on the very last fret, and you want to check your gap here in the middle. That's how we're going to do that. And let me see if I can get you a good shot of that from the side. Here I've got my strings pressed the first fret up here, and on the last fret down here. You can see that gap we got left. Some people like a very straight truss rod. A little bit of relief needs to be in there. All depends on the player. A light player can get away with less relief than a heavy player. In this case, I don't know if you can read that gap. It's going to need just a little bit of tightening, not much at all, and it's going to pull it back. It's a good idea too to check both sides of the neck. It's a good way to tell if your guitar has any warp as well. It's going to be a bit difficult for you to see. You can see it when you do it in person though. Looks very consistent on this guitar. No significant warpage or twisting up at the headstock because of the heavier gauge strings being on this side. So I think a little tweak to the truss rod tighter is going to help this guitar. Also a common mistake, we get lots of people bring in guitars. The truss rod is not your height adjustment rod. It's to work with the curve in the neck here to counter the pressure on these strings. Sometimes adjusting a truss rod can help your action, but it is not the primary adjustment. So don't crank down on that thing thinking it's going to get your action lower. One thing I forgot to mention here, when you're going to check your truss rod, when you're doing a complete setup, you want the guitar in the tuning it's going to be in for most of the time, and you want the correct gauge string on it. Going down a half a step is going to throw your truss rod adjustment, that's going to throw your cut at the nut, and that's going to throw your action. Sometimes a half step change in tuning is not enough to cause problems, sometimes it is. So that's something to think about when you go to do a setup, or when you take your guitar to someone to have a setup done to it. It's going to be a good idea to have a string gauge picked out and a tuning picked out. Alright, I'm sure there is a desired measurement on exactly what is recommended for the relief in the guitar. I cranked this thing about a half a round tighter, and what we've got now is about half of the E string width gap here. It's going to be difficult to see. I don't think I can really show it to you on camera here on a gap that small, but that's about what you're looking for, about half the width of your larger E string, and about the same width on the other side. Again, about half the width of this. You can't really control what it's going to do on both sides. Each neck is going to act a little bit differently. This one, again, as I adjusted it, still looks very straight. Okay, our truss rod adjustment did not move the action significantly at all. We didn't have to adjust it much on this guitar. So what we're going to do now is get our action down by removing some material on the bottom of this bridge saddle. So we're just going to take the strings off and get to it. Quick tip on keeping up the parts. If it's going to be multiple days, you're going to have to work on the guitar. This one we're going to finish today, so it's not going to be for me, but I thought I'd just share this with you. Roll out a piece of tape, put your pieces on here like this, fold it up. There you have all 6 of them. Tape that right to your guitar, to your case, something like that. These won't get lost if they're going to be off the guitar for a long period of time. Okay, I've removed the protector that I had on here to keep the guitar from getting damaged. And here we have the saddle. This is how we're going to adjust it. I've done a few of these, so I have a guess already of exactly how much of this I'm going to have to remove. What I'm going to do is mark it. I'm going to use my Sharpie, mark it on the side here, up to about the amount I think I'm going to have to take off to make this guitar play good. This is going to give us a visual indication so we know how much material we're removing from the bottom of this saddle. To remove this material, I've got a piece of 40 grit sandpaper on the bottom of my plane. You can see you make progress pretty quickly with a 40 grit. We're getting close down here, and I can see we're also a little bit off square, so I'll show you a trick here to get it square. Okay, I've switched this around. We're going to be right-handed. I'm a lot better at that, and I'll show you how we're going to tell if you're square or not on the bottom. Just paint the bottom of the saddle with your Sharpie so you can see when material gets removed. And you'll see in just a couple passes right here, we'll see where we're square and where we're not. And you can see, hit this edge, not the other, so we're still not square. I'll just do that a little bit more and it'll square right up.
just a little bit up here and touch it just a little more, and we're good to go.
All right, we're pretty square there. And then we're going to check the fit since we've lowered it and see how the action is. Tip on orienting these if you don't deal with them a lot. This is a compensated saddle. Anytime you've got a compensated saddle, this one going farther back is always going to be your B. That's just to do with how the intonation rings out on the guitar. That's what the compensation's for, and this is always going to be on the B string. Another thing I didn't mention earlier, in this case, I did not need to remove more material from the bass side or the treble side. I needed to remove a consistent amount from the entire length of the saddle. If you find your treble strings are fine and your bass strings are too high, you'll need to remove more from the bass end than the treble. That's just one thing to think about when you're doing it. Okay, here at the 17th fret, on the treble side, we're looking at about 110 thousandths. That looks good over there. Over here, on the bass side, we are at the 17th fret, about 135, 140 thousandths. So, plays pretty good where it's at, especially on the treble end. So I'm going to take a little bit more material off again from the saddle and leave it on the treble side, remove it from the bass side. I know it's a pain to do this a whole lot while you're working on a guitar, but you really should return this to standard tuning when you're checking this, because it is going to throw your alignments on a guitar, especially if you're doing a bass. It'll throw it by maybe even 50 or 60 thousandths on the bass. A lot of tension on those necks. To remove material from one side of the saddle and not the other, the best way you're going to be able to do it consistently is mark the bottom of your saddle again. Go ahead and paint it with this Sharpie. And remember, this is our B string up here, so this is our treble side of the saddle. We don't want to take much material from this side. What we're going to do is just do this by hand. Hold the saddle on the end that you need to remove material from. I'm going to be applying pressure here and not any pressure up on this other end. And you'll see that it's going to pull the material here. You'll see as the you'll see from the painted bottom of the saddle where it's coming, where the material's coming from. Just in a single pass, you can see already. We're for the most part leaving this alone, and we're hitting down here. And again, I'm using this mark on the side to judge how much is coming off the length of the saddle. Okay, I don't want to go too far, but you can see here where I've removed it from here. We've barely touched this right here. Now we have a slight problem though. The bottom of the saddle is not level. So we're going to do the same procedure that we did a minute ago. Painting the bottom of the saddle and then running against the side to get a nice square surface. And that's going to, because see now I've got a level plane here and a level plane here, but they're not together. So that's how I'm going to correct that. The same way we got the saddle squared up on the bottom. Here we go, same setup. I'm going to get these two planes in line here. And make sure this new section that we leveled is square at the same time. Here I'm just putting force evenly across it with my 3 fingers. Holding it in place, kind of pushing against the plane, and just pulling the plane across it, or pushing, either way. See, after just a couple passes, you can see that we haven't really gotten level to that yet. We're pretty close to square though, that's not a big deal. We'll just keep doing this until we get level. I might put a bit more pressure right here where those two level planes are coming together. As you can see, I'm kind of working from that point where the two level planes met. It kind of works, as you're doing this, it's going to kind of work that level surface out to both ends. And we're not looking to remove a lot of material from this end right here, so we just want to make it until the ends are no longer painted. So we've probably got our height already that we need. You always want to stop a little bit short. Listening to myself talk right here, talk about a lot of stuff that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, so let me say it correctly. Right here, you want to, the best way I can put it is kind of sneak up on the right fit. You don't want to overcut it or you'll end up too short, you'll get string buzzes and end up having to cut a brand new saddle from scratch or shim the bottom, which is less than ideal. We're just almost there, we're just almost level down here. I guess I could tell you why that's important. If you've got an under saddle pickup, it's very important that the slot be level and that the saddle be level, or you'll get inconsistent volumes across your strings. On a non-electrified acoustic guitar, it's just going to give you better contact all the way across, end up in a slight bit better sustain, better tone transfer to the top, which is the most important part of the acoustic, letting that top vibrate freely and getting the energy of the string to it. So now we're level. You can see on the side, we took most of that mark off of this side. We still got it left over there. We might have removed a little bit, maybe 5 or so thousandths from this side. We should be in a lot better shape on this side. So let's get the guitar back up here. Alright, so the action check here, that's probably going to be our final action check. You can see at the 17th fret, we're just underneath the 110 line, 110 thousandths line. Maybe just above the 100. We're right in there. Right where we were before, just a little bit lower. And here on this end, we're down to right at about 120 thousandths or so. A soft player that doesn't have a very rough technique can probably get away with 100 thousandths here, 110 thousandths. Bluegrass player may like it a little higher, in the range of about 130, even 140. So that's all to do with taste. For the average player, this will make them pretty happy right here. Alright, we're going to focus on this end of the guitar for a minute. We need to fix this nut slot right here. The one that's been double cut. Neither one of them are really on where they need to be. Makes the spacing just a bit funny. And also on this end down here, that problem here is probably the nut angle. If the string comes across it too straight or like this, if you're kind of angled back like that, the string is ringing somewhere off of this end of the nut, and you really want the string to be ringing off the very front edge of the nut. That's probably what's causing this problem in the E string. And you can see when I hit that, almost immediately you can see that this material in the front hasn't been touched yet. You can see from that kind of old stain that's in there. I'm not cutting the height yet. But you can see that keeps going farther back. Was most likely our problem. Always a good idea to tape this right here. I don't know if you saw that. I just nicked that right there. It's always good to have this tape here so that you don't hurt anything behind the nut. Later you just have to be careful once the strings are on. Since this slot is really messed up at the moment, I'm basically just enlarging it right now so that I can fill it properly. Okay, to fill this slot, what we've got here is some baking soda. Just going to fill this slot up, and I've got piece of tape back here to kind of act like a dam in the back of it there. I'm going to get all this off the front that I possibly can. Don't want it where we don't want it. This is some very thin super glue. Get this from Stuart McDonald. I really don't know where else you can buy this. There's probably other sources. Doesn't take much of this stuff. It runs like crazy. So you don't want it, again, where you don't want it. You got to be careful with it there. But that thin nature of that stuff's like thinner than water. You drop it on a fingerboard and you watch it like wick into the whole fingerboard. So I'm going to give that just a second to kind of get through that powder. Let's get this out of the way. I'm going to hit it with some accelerator. There are multiple sources for this. I just happen to be placing an order, so that's where I ordered it from. Hit that. And we just wait for it to dry. Might need a second application of it. And when it dries, recut our slot. With use one of those gauge nut files that I'm going to use in a minute to cut the nut with. Alright, to level this right here and prep it to cut the slot, and just to make this nut a little bit prettier overall, since we got a nice pretty saddle down there at the bridge now, this doesn't really match it anymore. I'm going to use some 120 on a firm backer, in this case a piece of maple, just an offcut from something, and just get it level. Feels nice and smooth. The rest of these slots will clean out as we cut the nut. Still got a couple little burrs I got to get off of there, but for the most part, that's very level. I don't feel that with my finger. It's a little bit visible, but I don't feel that with my finger. Alright, we're pretty lucky in about 6 different ways on this guitar as far as the nut goes here. Number one, they're all very close already, probably from a past setup. They've hardly moved at all, other than the adjustment we made to the E string there. What I do to cut the nut, there's different ways to do this. You can buy machines or buy fixtures that measure this, measure how far it's depressed at the first fret. I do it by hand and just kind of by feel. You know, how does it feel when I press that first finger? Or, you know, when I press that finger down on that first fret right there, how does that feel? Does it feel rough? Does it feel smooth? Is it as clean as it needs to be? And here's how you get a kind of a gauge on that. What I do is fret the 3rd fret. So your fret is bottomed out right here on the 2nd one behind your finger. You have a small gap right here. This is the gap that I look at when I do this. There's different ways to do it too, but like I say, this is the way I do it. It's the way I've got good at it, so that's what I do. So you press your finger, strings making contact with the 2nd fret, and you need a gap right here. If you don't have a gap, your string's not going to sound clear. Then I just press this gap and just kind of get a read for how that is. In this case, it's very close. You don't want it too close. You know, about half a string width, or sometimes less on the bigger strings. But we're not moving much at all right here. She's pretty comfortable. I might could bring it down a little bit, but given that this is the low E string, this one takes a beating sometimes with the right hand playing technique. So I'm going to leave that one right where it's at. This one, maybe a little stiff. And it feels it here. Quite a bit of movement going down there. So I'm going to cut that one. Same thing here. Just a touch. This one, it's almost laying on the fret. That's about as close as I can get with that guy there. B string, same thing, almost laying on the fret. Low E string, or high E string, we got lucky because I kind of just recut this slot, and she's dead on already. So the ones really need to, you're just going to tickle the D string, tickle the A string, and that's about it. Should be ready to go. Okay, something important here when you're going to cut a nut. When you're going to cut the nut slots, you don't want this string binding right here in this slot. So you need to use a gauge just slightly bigger than the slot that you're going to cut. In this case, our D string number 4 string is going to be a 32 gauge. I got a 35 gauge file, so that's what we're going to use. Again, I'm angling it back. You can see that I'm trying to kind of match the angle of the headstock, but the purpose of it is to get the string to ring off the very front of the slot, which it's already doing. Just need to get it just a tad lower. That's probably plenty. I like it. Maybe just a bit more. If you do go too deep in this process, you can do just like we did on the first string up there. And it's gotten very close now. She's not going to get any closer, guys, without buzzing. Hey, you can just tell just a little bit of stiffness right there. So let's bring him down. In this case, I've got a 42 gauge string and I've got a 42 gauge file. Like I say, you need it to be just a bit bigger. So what I'm going to do is kind of do this just a little bit. This is exaggerated here. This is exaggerated here, but you're going to do this just a little bit and just to widen that slot so it's ever so slightly bigger than a 42. Let's see where she's at. These files are pretty sharp. That's a bone nut. You can run into soft spots in bone and burn through it in a hurry. That's dropped it a good bit there. Probably imperceptible on the camera. You can feel it though. You perceive it with your fingers. Okay, I think that's about it for our setup. I'm going to get this nut cleaned up, get the tape off of here. I've detuned and tuned these strings 5 or 6 times in this process. So I'm going to get this brand new set of strings on here. In my experience, the worst thing for strings and the worst cause of string breakage is changing the tuning. I've seen this like at a time when I was playing some half step down, some standard. It seemed like every time I would change my tuning, I would pop a string somewhere, either at the nut, usually at the nut, or at the saddle down here. So if you're breaking a lot of strings, that may be part of it too if you're going up and down and tuning a lot. After I stopped playing a half step down, just all standard, I can't remember the last time I broke a string. I hope this video has been informative for you. Hope you've learned about the basic process of setting up an acoustic guitar. This guitar was a cut and dry example, no miscellaneous issues, no fret buzzes to chase down, no other real problems except for the issue we repaired at the nut. If you run into other issues that you can't figure out, you might have to take the guitar to somebody with a little bit more experience, to a local guitar tech in your area. Or if you're in the Gainesville, Georgia area, we can take care of it for you at Larry Daniels Music. Lastly, I'd like to say that I appreciate the time you've taken out of your day to watch the video. I appreciate it a lot, and I hope you've learned something.